Is doing very poorly, just in case you read incorrect stories. They're doing very, very poorly. They're having a hard time. They've been very dishonest. I'm losing faith in them because they do lie and they do misrepresent.
President Trump at Camp David opening up that cabinet meeting, talking about a number of different topics, but Iran leading the way. And this is new reporting, including our questions to the White House about what started in the Wall Street Journal about a new round of attacks. Pretty significant, at least forecast to be that, with the U.S. and Israel inside Iran. The White House press secretary responding to that, saying the United States signed an MOU with Iran and they broke it, shot at commercial ships, killed American soldiers. President Trump is not going to stand by and allow this terrorist behavior to occur. Iran will continue to pay until they come to the table in what President Trump deems a meaningful way. With that, let's start there and bring in our panel. Trey Gowdy, former congressman from South Carolina, host of Sunday Night in America with Trey Gowdy. Susan Page, Washington bureau chief at USA Today, and Axios political reporter Hans Nichols. Hans, it seems like the president has reached this frustration level. He essentially signaled that at the cabinet meeting today, and it seems like that's the pressure point to try to get Iran, after some point, to come meaningfully to the table.
The president, in his own words, Brett, said we will be hitting them very hard. So I don't think anyone should be surprised if there are substantial and serious strikes in Iran, potentially jointly with Israel, over the weekend. What we don't know is we don't know the scope and we don't know the duration. And some of the reporting from CBS and others has indicated that the Trump administration wants it to be over by the weekend. Now, that's a difficult sort of runway. That's a very short period to have exceedingly hard strikes, harsh strikes, as some of the reporting is suggesting, but also have it be ending so quickly, potentially before markets open back up on Sunday. So this is the challenge the president finds himself in, is that, yes, he wants to strike Iran. Yes, he wants to let them know that he means business, but there's also some regulators on it, and one of those regulators is the market.
Yeah, Secretary of State Marco Rubio sat down with Laura Trump for an interview this weekend, and he said that Iran has not really calculated President Trump. Take a listen.
I don't think the Iranian regime has ever faced a president like President Trump, which is someone that actually takes action. You know, they got used to, for 20 or 30 years, not just the U.S., but the broader world, allowing them to get away with things like lying, breaking deals, tricking people into agreements and so forth.
Trey, thoughts on that and kind of this growing frustration in the administration with the efforts to try to get to a negotiated peace?
Yeah, Marco's right. It's been 47 years. I don't know what changes if you get them to the table. I mean, assume you're sitting across the table from them, Brett. Are you going to believe what they tell you? I mean, you cannot rely on what this regime tells you. So one of two things has to happen. That regime has to fundamentally change, which hasn't happened in half a century, or you have to change the regime. In the meantime, you've got to hit them so much harder than they hit you. Not only do they pursue a nuclear weapon from a military standpoint, they pursue a nuclear economic weapon, which is the Strait of Hormuz. You cannot allow that to happen. You cannot give this rogue nation that amount of power. I mean, if he still has patience with Iran, then he is Job, because the rest of us ran out weeks ago.
In the meantime, Susan, there's a lot happening in the Middle East. I mean, for a long time, we played this cat and mouse game with Hamas, as did Israel. Now the president is touting a disarmament deal.
Yeah. But, you know, there are some similarities, I think, between the situation with Iran and the situation in Gaza, which is that the devil is truly in the details. So you can announce a plan, and if it was implemented, that would be a huge achievement, a real game changer in the Middle East. But we've got 100 steps to go to get there. And as we found with Iran, you take one step forward, you take 2 steps back. So there is a lot of skepticism in the region that this is really going to be possible. But if it was, it would be historic.
Yeah, on that historic nature, here is the president today.
I do have an understanding with Israel. Israel is very happy about it. Will it go through its ups and downs? It's a very complex situation over there. Nobody thought that would be possible, to disarm Hamas. That shows you how much success we're having with Iran.
Well, this is a huge step forward. It looks like a pretty good process. There's a lot of verification in it.
Now is the time for both sides to implement what was agreed.
So the president's touting this board of peace. All parties reaffirm their commitment to the comprehensive plan to achieve peace in Gaza. Israel fully complete without delay all remaining commitments. Progression from one phase to the following one shall be contingent on the verified completion. Hamas and other factions agreed that all civilian governance and security functions in Gaza shall be handed over upon fully assuming its responsibilities. This new entity shall maintain the continuation of civilian institutions and public services. I mean, it says a lot, Hans, but getting from point A to point B, as we know in that area, sometimes is very difficult.
Yeah, I mean, look, as a threshold matter, this seems like a significant accord. It seems like they have agreement, not total agreement from the Israelis, but, you know, they're getting there. And as the president himself noted, there will be ups and downs on this. But, you know, what surprised me the most about this, and I think it surprised most people, is that there's a lot going on in the world. We're talking about Iran. We're talking about fighting with the Senate. There are so many different issues. And then out of nowhere, this comes out. And obviously, diplomats have been tracking this. They've been focused on this. But it's a reminder that the Trump administration is doing so many things at so many times, and it's a challenge, but it's almost bewildering to stay up with it. Here, it seems like this is good news. You don't want to be overly positive on the first, don't read too much into it on the first cut, but at first glance, this does look like it's a significant diplomatic breakthrough.
And last thing around the horn on foreign policy, President Zelensky said he had a good phone call with Vice President Vance, reiterating the need for defensive missiles. Trey, here is the president on whether they're going to put Patriot missile technology in with the Ukrainians. Take a listen.
You have to be very judicious, but you have to be very careful. Now, we have not agreed to that. We're talking about it. But it's a hard thing to give away that kind of technology. If you give that technology, they can someday turn on you. You know, that is possible.
Ukrainians obviously want to build these missiles because that's the one thing they feel like they're lacking, Trey.
Yeah, Brett, did you think 5 years ago that we would still be talking about Ukraine fighting and in some instances winning this war? They need more long-range missiles. They need some help from Elon Musk. But what a credit to the spirit of the Ukrainian people that they took on one of Europe's largest armies, and this undersized country is more than holding its own. How in the world Europe doesn't step up and help them? I mean, this has been a remarkable defense of your own sovereignty by the Ukrainian people. They just need a little more help. I hope we give it to them.
All right, panel, stand by.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.